7 Sinister Disappearances Exposed, Spine-chilling cases of cursed souls and unexplained fates. Jess's blood ran cold. 7 children had disappeared from her once peaceful suburb, each case tied to whispers of an ancient curse, a dark secret lurking behind every picket fence and manicured lawn. The last boy was only 8. Gone without a trace, like shadows swallowed by night. Every neighbor had an alibi, but fear crept deeper than friendship, twisting smiles into grimaces. As dusk descended, Jess hurried home, the weight of her shift as a cashier heavy on her shoulders. She quickened her stride, heart hammering like a drum in her chest. The sky bled into darkness, every rustle made her freeze. Even the leaves seemed to whisper rumors. Her thoughts spiraled back to Mr. Thompson, the kindly old man next door with eyes too sharp. He'd always watched her kids with an unsettling intensity. Had she been blind to the predator so close? Earlier that day, she'd overheard 2 mothers gossiping. "Did you hear how the last boy went missing right after talking to Thompson?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Now, with another child's disappearance, paranoia flooded her mind. Panic clawed at Jess as she reached home, but relief twisted into horror when she discovered Luke was still out. The clock screamed 10. "Mom! We're by the playground!" Luke's frantic voice echoed in her head, but it only fueled her terror. She felt the darkness closing in. Their street, once a haven, morphed into a labyrinth of shadows. "Luke!" she shouted, panic skittering through her veins. She dashed past Mr. Thompson's house. There he sat on his porch, an unsettling grin growing wider as Jess ran past. It was too tight, too knowing. Adrenaline surged as dread bubbled in her throat. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Jess pushed deeper into the creeping darkness. She reached the park, breathless. The swings creaked ominously in the wind, echoing the laughter that wasn't there. Fear fizzed in her chest as she spotted a flicker of movement, a child's cap trapped beneath the old oak tree. Her heart sank. Luke's favorite. Something was terribly wrong. Jess turned, the hairs on her neck rising, feeling the oppressive weight of unseen eyes. Was it Thompson watching from his porch, or was it more? The missing children were not just casualties. They bore a mark, a connection to him. She could almost hear the stories she'd dismissed before, tales of betrayal and vengeance. Then, as the panic reached its peak, she felt her phone buzz in her pocket. A text from Luke flashed across the screen. "Help! I can't find my way back." The world swirled around her, the air thickening with dread. If time slipped away and she didn't find him. The realization struck her like ice water. Mr. Thompson was more than just a neighbor. He was at the epicenter of this malevolence. The truth was ugly, and it sent her reeling. What had she unleashed? The night felt like it was alive, and she stood on the edge of an abyss, her heart pounding. Could she confront the predator smiling in the shadows before time ran out? The horror was just beginning. Jess's eyes darted around, searching the park for any sign of Luke. She willed her legs to move faster, but every step felt heavy with dread. Trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out like bony fingers. The shadows danced menacingly, threatening to engulf her whole. "Luke!" she screamed, voice raspy with fear. The only answer was the chilling creak of the swing set and the whisper of the wind, wrapping her in a cocoon of despair. She felt the weight of the night press against her, making every breath a struggle. Heart pounding, she knelt beside the oak tree, fingertips brushing over the fabric of the cap, now a lifeline amidst the rising horror. What happened to him? Each second surged with terror. She couldn't stay paralyzed by fear. She had to find her son. Fumbling her phone in a panic, she sent a series of frantic texts. "I'm coming! Stay where you are!" The thought that he might not even see them turned her stomach. She fought the urge to vomit as she considered the very real possibility that Mr. Thompson could be involved, that he could be lurking nearby, waiting for her to make a mistake. The darkness around her thickened. It was not just the absence of light, it was a tangible presence, alive and breathing. Jess glanced toward Thompson's house. The porch light flickered unnaturally, illuminating the old man in an eerie glow. His grin remained fixed, terrifyingly cheerful, as if he knew something she didn't, something that made her skin crawl. "Is this a game to you?" she thought, shaking her head as if to dispel the image of his smile. Each child's disappearance, a piece of a macabre puzzle, and she was nearing the end of hers, tethered by the strings of her own fear. Jess took a deep breath, mustering her courage. She had to revisit the edge of the darkness, confront the predator that haunted her thoughts. Every child deserved a mother willing to face the abyss, even if that entity was right next door. With hesitant steps, she turned and called out again. "Luke! Where are you?" Panic clawed like nails down her throat. The silence was suffocating, but just as she was about to scream again, a faint rustle broke through the stillness, too close, too intentional. "Mom?" His voice, weak and trembling, sliced through the air like glass. "Luke!" She bolted towards the sound, heart racing. The rustling turned into a series of soft whimpers. Jess felt relief breaking through just as a chill spread through her, stopping her in her tracks. The sounds were coming not from ahead but from the shadows behind her, deep and dark, where her senses fumbled. "Jess!" A voice echoed, distorted and menacing. "Come closer." She spun around, her breath hitching painfully in her throat. There, between the trees, stood a figure cloaked in darkness, features shrouded yet disturbingly familiar. Fear closed in around her like a vice. What was happening? "Luke!" She screamed again, but her voice now strained with desperation. The figure spoke again, voice smooth like silk but with an undercurrent of malice. "You can't save him, Jess." Her gut twisted painfully. Jess pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself to wake from the nightmare, thinking this couldn't be real. But as she opened them, the dark presence lingered, and claws of terror wrapped around her heart. Desperate, in pure instinct, she ran toward the last sound of Luke's voice, leaving the shadow behind, but with every hurried step, the world around her began to spin and blur. Time was slipping away. What if she crossed the line? What if escaping the darkness only led her further into it? Each breath felt like it could be her last, with an even darker challenge waiting around the corner. What horrible truth awaited Jess that night, and would she have the strength to face it? The sinister grip of the curse tightened, pulling her deeper into a fate she could never have anticipated. The night seemed to stretch infinitely as Jess stumbled deeper into the park, heartbeat thudding in her ears like a war drum. The absence of light bore down on her, feeling like eyes watching, tracking. She fought against the dread, praying that Luke had held on, that he was just scared, hiding from the shadows. Yet every sound felt sharp and menacing, cutting through her resolve like a jagged knife. "Mom, help!" His voice, weak and delicate, scraped through the air, sending shivers racing down her spine. It was as if he was trapped in a cocoon of terror and despair, and she was the only silk thread that could touch him. She raced toward the sound, but the shadows twisted, pulling her in every direction. "Luke!" she called, voice trembling. Was he even there? Panic tinged her thoughts with bitterness and hopelessness. The playground equipment cast twisted silhouettes against the dull glow of the flickering streetlights. Each creak from the swings felt like a cruel mockery, callous laughter echoing in the silence. Suddenly, she realized she was not alone. A rustling drew her attention to the shadows, not a mere figment of her imagination but something real, something out there. "Jess, you're moving too fast," the voice coiled around her, seductive yet dark, playing with her sanity. It was the same deep timbre from before, one that sent her heart plummeting. The figure stepped out slowly, illuminated for a moment in the light a face that was both kind and twisted, a smile that could charm yet terrify. "Mr. Thompson. Stay away from him," she shouted, driven not by courage but sheer panic. Her legs felt heavy, as if the night itself had gripped her. He raised a hand lazily, almost apologetically, yet there was nothing remorseful in his eyes, only satisfaction. "Why don't you come here instead?" His voice was syrupy, oozing into her mind like thick fog. "You don't really believe in fairy tales, do you? There's a darker truth waiting." She swallowed hard, the weight of her decision pressing down. Which way should she go? The direction of her son or further into the darkness, where answers might lie or traps set, lined with deceit? "Mom!" The cry sparked a fresh wave of urgency. It was so close. Jess pivoted away from Thompson, uncertainty clawing at her insides, and sprinted past him. "Run away if you must," he jeered, almost gleefully, but Jess couldn't look back. "You can't escape your fate, Jess." The words slithered around her, sinking into her thoughts as she pushed herself deeper into the night, breathless and frantic. "Luke!" she screamed, her voice hoarse, raw from fear, as she stumbled through a maze of trees. She cursed the thickening darkness, the branches overhead like fingers reaching down, trying to pull her off the path. Suddenly, an eerie stillness fell over the park. The wind died, and even the crickets went quiet. It was suffocating. Jess froze, every sense heightened. Why would everything suddenly go silent? A creeping dread washed over her. Then she saw it, something small and dark moving near the bushes. Was that a glimpse of a familiar red shirt? Her heart surged. "Luke!" She rushed towards it, only to stop dead in her tracks, realizing it was not her son but something else, something much worse, a small doll, its glass eyes wide and staring, a mockery of helplessness. "Mom, over here!" The voice emerged again, softer, further away. With renewed determination she pushed ahead, desperate and determined to crush the despair that sought to engulf her. Yet, as she rounded the corner near the old swings, shadows began to converge, the familiar figure of Thompson slowly stepping into view again, eyes gleaming in the dim light like those of a predator about to strike. "Too late," Jessie whispered, taking a step forward, his looming presence drawing the darkness closer, coiling around her like a snake. The air shifted, bringing a cold chill that promised terror. Everything was converging: the fading cries of her son, the encroaching darkness, and the figure she had fought against. Would she find Luke in time, or was she already too late, and snared within a fate she could not escape? The question lingered, a dark promise hanging in the air. The words hung in the air, charged with a dismal weight that settled like a dark haze. Jess's heart raced as she took a step back, the sickening swirl of dread and denial gripping her. The hollow laughter of Thompson resonated around her, mocking and taunting, drowning out the faint cries of her son. "Too late," Jessie repeated, every syllable sharp and deliberate, a knife scraping against her sanity. "Get away!" she screamed, her voice breaking, desperation clawing at the edges of her mind. Yet her legs betrayed her, rooted to the spot, as terror surged through her veins like ice. She felt the crushing darkness encroach, thick and tangible, pressing against her, suffocating her hopes. Behind Thompson, the shadows ebbed and flowed, a sea of malevolent shapes waiting to consume her. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, Jess jerked to the side, slipping past him, heart pounding violently with each frantic step. "Luke! I'm coming!" The words rushed out, a prayer against the encroaching despair. The playground loomed ahead, but the laughter had vanished. The swings twisted eerily, creaking into the stillness, shadows twisting around them like whispers of the cursed. She sprinted towards the slides, where her mind told her Luke would be, but the darkness danced, shifting and merging, twisting reality. "Mom, help!" his voice echoed again, distant and splintered. Each repeated plea was a dagger embedding deeper into her flesh, reminding her that time was slipping away. She doubled her pace, driven by the raw urgency to find him, to free him from the ominous grip of the night. Then she spotted them, the old wooden playhouse, once vibrant and filled with life, now a carcass of shadows. It stood crookedly, beckoning her forward like a siren luring a sailor to his doom. "Please, God," she muttered, racing toward it, her breath ragged and wild. Branches scratched at her arms, sharp as knives, but she fought through every step more desperate. "Luke, I'm coming!" The fervor in her voice echoed against the night, an invocation, a curse. Jess reached the playhouse, her hands trembling as she pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, disturbing decades of stillness. Inside, shadows loomed, swirling like dark specters. Luke! Silence. Panic surged, crashing over her like a tidal wave. She stepped inside, every sense tuning to the slightest sound. The air felt charged, thick with an energy she could not see. A chill crept up her spine, the fetid scent of decay permeating the air. Beneath her feet, the floorboards moaned, secrets buried beneath their surface. Then, a whisper, faint yet piercing. In here the voice sent cold fingers down her spine. She followed it, heart racing as she made her way to the back corner. Crouching down, she found an old trapdoor, dusty and rotted. The hinges screamed as she pulled it open, revealing a dark abyss that swallowed the light. "Mom, please!" Luke's voice echoed again, tremulous and plaintive, an irresistible siren call from the depths. "Hold on, baby, I'm coming!" Jess yelled, her heart hammering in her chest. She felt her footing slip as she leaned down into the dark. What had happened here? What unspeakable horrors lay hidden? She couldn't dwell on that. She had to act, had to save Luke. With every ounce of strength, she clambered down, darkness enveloping her like a shroud. The air became heavier, full of muffled cries and the sound of something skittering just out of sight. The deeper she went, the less hope she felt. "Mom, Mom!" Luke wailed, his cries now mingled with something else, something sinister. In that terrifying moment of realization, she knew. Jess didn't just have to find Luke. She had to escape whatever was waiting to snatch them both away. Driven by fierce determination, she pressed on through the oppressive darkness. But the whispers crept in, chilling her soul. Welcome back, Jess. Would she find Luke before whatever lurked in the depths dragged them into the shadows forever? The darkness closed in tighter, and Jess's heart raced as a horrific truth began to unravel in her mind. Jess's descent felt like a plunge into an icy heart of despair. The air was thick, stifling every breath, a battle against the oppressive weight that clawed at her chest. She staggered as the cries of her son echoed, twisting through the darkness, a haunting melody that urged her deeper into the abyss. "Mom!" Luke pleaded again, his voice laced with fear that struck her to the core. The trap door had given way to a narrow tunnel, walls slick and damp, closing in like a vice. She couldn't shake the feeling that the very earth was alive, pulsating with some ancient curse, wrapping around her like the tendrils of a spider's web. Shadows curled and flickered, distorting her mind and stirring something primal in her gut, a deep-rooted fear of the unknown, of what lived beneath the surface. "Keep calling, honey!" she shouted, the desperation in her voice echoing back at her, taunted by the void. "I'm almost there." More whispers licked at her ears, indecipherable murmurs that sent chills racing down her spine. "What is happening here?" She screamed into the darkness, demanding answers from the unseen. It was futile. The silence responded only with a lingering echo that mocked her. Her hands brushed against cold stone as she fumbled forward, feeling her way through an unseen landscape that shifted beneath her touch. Something was watching, lurking just beyond her perception. She shivered, and for a moment, imagined a set of eyes following her every move, hungry for the warmth of her life. "Mom!" Luke cried again, and the anguish in his voice propelled her forward. "I see you. I'm scared. Just keep talking. I'm coming." Her mind raced, battling waves of panic that threatened to pull her under. Was this a trap? A labyrinth designed by some malevolent entity? What kind of twisted mind could create such a prison? Her thoughts spiraled as she rounded a corner, stumbling into a smaller chamber. Stale air washed over her, thick with despair. And there, illuminated by a ghostly glow, she saw a flickering light that cast shadows dancing against the walls, revealing shapes so twisted they looked unnatural, loathsome remnants of a past that should have been forgotten. In the center, a child's shadow flickered. It took her breath away, a moment of false hope before it morphed into something ghastly. She could hear the laughter, cruel and distant, followed by echoes of torment that struck her heart like a hammer. "Luke!" she shouted, panic surging anew. She sprinted closer to the light, but the chamber shifted, walls closing in, paths twisting into dead ends. "I'm coming!" But the light dimmed, flickering like a dying star. Was that laughter or sobbing? She pressed closer, fear clawing at her sanity. And then she froze, her heart stopping in her chest. In the shadows, a figure loomed, a silhouette with a twisted grin, a face both familiar and entirely grotesque. "Welcome to the family, Jess," it hissed, voice slithering through the darkness like cold water. Jess recoiled, terror wrapping around her throat, choking her breath. "What do you want?" she gasped, stumbling backward as memories surged like a tidal wave, a sickening realization flooding her mind. "Your boy, Jess, yes, ours now. It's your turn to stay." Horrified, she turned, desperation igniting a primal instinct, the need to escape, to protect. But the darkness pulsed with a malevolent hunger, the shadows shifting, threatening to swallow her whole. She bolted down the tunnel, racing against the encroaching night, driven by one thought: Luke. Yet the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like chains, dragging her back. "Join us, Jess." Her heart raced as she hurtled forward, praying for a way out, clenched fists trembling with fear. Was this all a cruel dream, or a living nightmare? There was no time for answers, only an escape. Would she break free from this cursed grip before it pulled her under, or would she find herself trapped forever in a twisted world of despair? Jess's mind swirled with horror as she ran into the unknown, and just ahead, darkness awaited, ready to claim her in its dark embrace. What horrors would she face, and would she ever escape the clutches of whatever lurked within this terrible place? Jess stumbled deeper into the suffocating darkness, each footfall eclipsed by the oppressive silence that followed her. The walls, slick with damp and despair, pressed closer, squeezing the air from her lungs. She could hear herself panting, terrified breaths echoing against the cold stone, drowning out Luke's cries, which still rang through the shadows like an unholy chorus. "Mom!" His voice trembled, distant yet piercing. Each call birthed a surge of dread, like the icy fingers of a phantom clawing at her heart. "Help me!" She clutched her head in frustration, pulling at strands of hair, willing panic to recede. "I'm coming! Just hold on." But her words felt empty, swallowed by the gaping maw of the darkness, as if it feasted on her despair. Jess pressed onward, her hands brushing against jagged edges, sharp enough to draw blood. The cold stone felt alive, each quivering vibration reminiscent of a heartbeat, thrumming with sinister intent. Was the very earth whispering warnings? Or beckoning her deeper? An unsettling thought gnawed at her. What if this wasn't just a place? What if it was a conscious entity, feeding on her fear, coercing her deeper into its maw? Suddenly, from behind, a soft rustle broke the eerie quiet. She whipped around, the movement sending waves of terror crashing through her. "Who's there?" she shrieked, her voice trembling. A slow chuckle cut through the dark, serpentine and chilling. "You can't escape, Jess. You're already part of it." The voice slithered through the air, smooth and slick as oil. Jess swallowed hard. "Leave us alone." Her voice cracked. She turned to run but collided with something solid, a wall that hadn't been there moments before. Panic seized her, and she spun back, frantically searching for a way out. The chamber was shifting, rearranging itself in a grotesque waltz of despair. The shadows rippled with malicious glee, revealing faces just out of reach, familiar and haunting, their eyes hollow yet brimming with secrets. Every fleeting glimpse felt like a memory, dredged from the depths like something long forgotten. "Mom!" Luke's voice rang out again, closer this time, yet laced with an eerie echo that curdled her blood. "Please help me!" Desperation clawed at her. I'm coming! She shoved against the wall, pushing her way through the constricting darkness. The chilling laughter receded for a moment, replaced by whispered promises that tickled her ears, tempting her to linger. "Stay, join us." "No!" she screamed back. "I want tea. I'd do anything to save him." Her fist struck against the cold stone, anger flaring in the depths of her fear. The figure loomed larger and closer, a grotesquely familiar visage pulling itself from the shadows. Jess recoiled, recognizing the twisted smile stretching across a face she thought she'd never see again. "Mommy's here!" We miss you, it cooed, each word dripping with malice. Get away from me! She shouted, heart racing. The air thickened, stifling her cries, yet she felt a strange tugging at the edges of her resolve. Was it guilt? Or something darker? Suddenly, with a fury born of desperation, she forced herself to move. As she pressed deeper, the darkness clung desperately, yanking at her limbs, pulling her back. Panic surged, pushing her forward. What lay ahead was unknown, a malignant mystery wrapping around her thoughts. Each step risked something far more terrifying than remaining lost in those suffocating shadows. Jess dashed toward the flickering glow that pulsed in the distance, a beacon promising hope but guarded by shadows. What light was left flickered like a heartbeat, teasing her with the illusion of salvation. Would she reach her son before whatever curse this place claimed her as another lost soul? The darkness roared behind her, hungry to devour the last bits of hope. And just then, a cold breeze swept through the tunnel, carrying a whisper that sent shivers down her spine. Time is running out, Jess. Despair knotted tightly in her stomach as terror rose like bile. There was no turning back now. What awaited her in the light? The light grew closer, an ominous glimmer that tore at the fabric of darkness, revealing twisted shapes skimming along the edges, ready to lunge. Jess's heart thundered in her chest as she sprinted towards it. Look! She shouted, her voice raw. The flicker of light danced dangerously, like a taunting smirk, evading her grasp just as she felt hope start to stir. Mom! The scream came again, but this time it was layered with panic, a sound that chilled her to the bone. It shattered the walls of her resolve, pushing her faster, driving her through the chaotic thrum of shadows. Please! The flickering brightness pulsed more violently, echoing the frantic beat of her pulse, a heartbeat she could not trust. Was it a real path, or merely a further deception crafted by the darkness? Shadows flitted beside her, whispering promises that promised to crack her sanity, draping themselves like dark cloaks over her thoughts. Come to us, Jess, don't you want to see him? The whispers coiled around her, sweet like honey yet sharp like a razor. Faces contorted and warped, pleading from the corners of her mind. Unfamiliar yet tauntingly close. She fought them off, tightening her grip on her resolve, fighting to keep those sinister threads from pulling her deeper into despair. Mustering every ounce of strength, she lunged toward the light, each step a battle. Stay away from me! She shouted, a fierce declaration against the maelstrom closing in. The walls trembled as if responding to her defiance. It stopped for the briefest moment, as if pondering her vigor, then lunged back, shifting the very fabric of the corridor, morphing it into a labyrinth of fear. Then came the burst of laughter, loud and jarring, menacing and playful. You think you can reach him? The darkness always takes those it craves with renewed desperation. Jess collided into the light. It washed over her, momentarily blinding her. For a flicker of time, there was silence. She shielded her eyes, breathing hard, the air crisp and electric. Then, reality crashed back. Mom! Luke's voice was almost a wail, cracking through the fragile peace brought on by the light. It shattered like glass, sharp and piercing. The brightness flickered again, revealing a scene that twisted Jess's insides like a vice. Before her stood a figure small and shrouded in the same darkness that cloaked the rest of the realm. It was Luke, but twisted. His face, distorted in a snarl, shone with the same malevolence that threatened to consume everything. Wasn't he just calling for her? He was part of it now, trapped and snared. Help me! He cried again, eyes dull like ash, void of warmth, replaced by something far more sinister. Jess stumbled back. The warmth she felt was now replaced by ice. No, no! Tears streamed down her face, trailing in the dirt of despair. Was he truly lost to that darkness? Shrugging off the panic threatening to drown her, she stepped forward, desperate to touch him. But something shifted at that moment. The light flared brightly, then extinguished, plunging her back into the folds of darkness. Shapes moved around her, clawing at her sanity, morphing in and out of reality. Join us, Jess. The whispers had evolved into a chorus, echoing her deepest fears. We can make you whole again. The echoes of familiar voices twisted into a grotesque symphony, wrapping around her like hands, pulling tight. Jess fought against their grasp, rage igniting once more. "I want tea!" she screamed, though doubt coursed through her veins like poison. But as she turned, the world had shifted. The light was gone, replaced by an endless void. The shadows slithered, laughing, their echo growing louder, drowning out her cries. She staggered, retreating into the depths of madness. As she pressed against what she hoped was still the wall, she caught a flicker of movement from the corner of her eye, a shadowy figure darting away, leaving behind the faint outline of familiar silhouette. "Luke!" she called out, but her voice felt weak, hoarse in the clutches of despair. The walls closed in as if caving under the weight of her dread. She was not alone. Something lurked in the suffocating space, feeding on her terror, poised to swallow her whole. What did it want? And worse still, what had it done to Luke? The shadows swirled around her, cackling softly, the suffocating darkness consuming her sanity inch by inch. And then, from deeper within the shadows, a voice emerged, low and sinister. "You thought you could save him, but saving means sacrifice, Jess. What are you willing to give up?" The question echoed in her mind, twisting her resolve until it snapped, leaving it frayed at the edges. Desperation surged anew, thick and heavy, suffocating her presence in the silence. What kind of sacrifice did the darkness crave? Would she be willing to pay the price? Jess pressed against the unseen wall, her heart racing wildly, like a trapped bird battering against its cage. The shadows hissed and writhed around her, as if sensing her unraveling. "What do you want from me?" The words slipped out, tremulous and shaky. From the murky depths materialized a figure, its edges indistinct, blending into the darkness. It hovered before Jess, a grotesque semblance of a person, yet something in its aura felt wrong. "We want what he does," it whispered, voice oozing like ooze from a wound. "To be free." "Free?" Jess echoed, confusion igniting a flicker of rebellion. "He is trapped. You've ruined him." Laughter erupted, a discordant symphony, ringing in her ears like broken glass. "Ruined? Oh, dear Jess, he was never whole. Just like you." The voice coiled around her, mocking, and she felt the edges of her sanity begin to unravel. "Don't you see? The two of you fit perfectly in this dance of shadows," it continued, gliding closer. "Just give in. Let the darkness envelop you. We can teach you." Jess shook her head, trying to push away the absurdity. "You're lying!" she shouted, desperate to drown the looming doubt. "You've taken him. You want to take me, too." The mist around her thickened, swirling, pressing in with insistent hands. She could feel its coldness sinking into her skin, as if trying to claw out her will. "But we already have," the creature crooned. "You cannot escape it, Jess. You are entwined, forever bound." She stumbled back, searching for a way out. Her eyes darted through the void, and for a split second, she thought she saw him again, a flicker of Luke's face, twisted with anguish, melding into the shadows. "Mom!" It was a faint whisper, tinged with despair. "Luke!" she screamed, anguish ripping through her voice. She charged toward the fading silhouette, but the shadows surged forward like a tidal wave, crashing over her. "Do not resist," they hissed. "Resist, and you'll lose him for good." A wave of terror washed over her, clamping down around her throat like a vice. Her thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm, uncertainty wrestling with hope. "He is still in there. I feel it," Jess cried. "He needs me." "Does he?" The voice purred, slithered through her mind like a serpent. Or is that just the voice of a desperate mother? Tremors coursed through her. Did she really believe she could save him? The shadows tightened their grip, suffocating her will. In that moment of despair, a flicker of insight ignited. "Tell me what to do. I'll do anything to save him." A gloating silence enveloped her. "The choice is simple," the entity whispered, its breath cold against her ear. "Embrace the darkness or decay alone." "And my soul?" Jess stammered, comprehension dawning like a storm over the horizon. Such a simple transaction. The shadows pulsated, their movements seductive and sinister. "Your sacrifice could free both of you. A perfect union amid the chaos." "No! I want to become like you." Determination surged in her chest, a flame flickering against the oncoming storm. But doubt twisted within, whispering sweet lies. Could she truly resist? Then, breaking through the oppressive chaos, a single thought shivered through her mind. If she succumbed, what would it mean for Luke? Suddenly, the shadows shifted, bodies colliding in the darkness, as though a storm were brewing. A figure broke through like lightning cutting through the night, a slice of light in her abyss. "Mom! Don't listen! Luke!" Jess yelled, reaching out, feeling the pull of hope amidst despair. The struggle deepened, shadows battling against the lash of his desperate plea, and in that moment, the air grew electric, heavy with the weight of a choice that would change everything. What price would she pay to save him? Would she leap into the darkness? Like a heart stalling in the throes of terror, the air thickened with suspense. "Choose wisely, Jess," the shadows whispered, a collective hiss that crawled under her skin. "The clock is ticking." Her gaze locked onto Luke's figure, but the space between them loomed dark and unyielding. Had she the courage to plunge into the unknown? Or would she cling to futile hope? "Do you dare?" The voice dripped with malice, a final challenge to her very soul. One choice remained, one moment that would determine their fate. Jess's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum, each beat drowning out the whispers that clung to her like a second skin. The shadows pulsed with a life of their own, twisting and slinking in an unsettling dance, almost taunting her. Luke's voice echoed in her ears, a beacon slicing through the murky fog surrounding her. But the cage of darkness was tighter now, walls closing in. She took an instinctive step towards her son, the very essence of hope mingling with despair. "Mom! Don't!" Luke's voice pierced through. "You can't give in! Hang on, baby! I'm here!" Jess shouted, every ounce of her will poured into those words. The shadows writhed and hissed with frenzied energy, anger ripping through their whispered promises. "Resisting is futile," the disembodied voice hissed, its unholy laughter mixing with her fraying resolve. "He is slipping away. Embrace the gift, join us in freedom. Don't you want to be free of all this pain?" Pain. The word struck her deep. It pooled around her, suffocating. Every moment without Luke felt like an eternity of suffering. But could she trust this malevolent force? In that brief moment of chaos, doubt crept in again, its gnawing silence echoing louder than Luke's cries. "Mom! Fight it! Please!" Jess felt raw, exposed under the weight of shadows that pressed into her skin, pulling her down. She remembered their laughter, the light in his eyes. She couldn't let these dark things take him. Gathering every shred of her dwindling strength, she screamed, "I won't give up on you. We're stronger than this." A tremor shot through the darkness. In response, it shrieked, and the cacophony twisted, transforming from laughter into sounds of pain. Jess surged forward, grappling against the thickening shadows, each movement sharp with desperation. "Luke! Fight back!" And then suddenly, everything shifted. The darkness quaked, seeming to retreat momentarily, allowing a flicker of light to break through. Jess's heart leapt. For a brief second, space opened between her and the suffocating void. She could see the outline of her son, desperately clawing his way back to her, battling against the dark. "Mom! Hold on!" he shouted, voice strained. Jess could almost feel the warmth of his hand reaching out to her, but the shadows struck with fury, pushing her back, trying to swallow the spark of hope. "You think you can escape? You belong to us!" They spat, vibrating with rage. The walls around her tightened once more, and Jess felt panic rise, potent and vile. She would not let Luke fade into this nightmare. She had faced too many demons already. With a newfound determination, she shouted, "We are not bound by your darkness. You can't have us!" The shadows recoiled, as if her words were weapons, and Jess pressed forward again, fighting against the tendrils that clawed at her. "You want to take my soul? To take him? You'll have to kill me first." The moment she dared to claim her power, an explosive force erupted from within her, igniting the air with raw energy. The darkness screeched in the face of her defiance. Shadows splintered, cracks forming in their hold. Jess, Mom! Luke cried, and she saw him struggling against the grasp of the void, his form wavering. But each second of defiance wore her down. Doubt turned to desperation. Would it be enough? Together, Luke! Jess shouted, and she grasped for him, feeling the energy shift, pulling them both from the depths of despair. Yet, just when it seemed they might break free, a heavy darkness surged forth, swallowing everything in a violent maelstrom. The last sound Jess heard before it engulfed them was Luke's scream, an echo of terror that resonated deep within her soul, laced with dread. In the swirling chaos, a familiar voice whispered, now more urgent, "You won't survive without embracing the truth." The clock is still ticking, and in that last moment before darkness embraced them both, Jess realized perhaps the real battle was just beginning. What darkness lay in the truth she had yet to uncover? Now, not only her son's fate hung in the balance, but her own. The darkness twisted, billowing around Jess and Luke like storm clouds filled with chaos and despair. Each heartbeat pounded like a drum, drowning out the echoes of their fears. Jess could feel the pull of the shadows, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud, but she would not let it claim them. "Together, Luke!" she screamed, raw determination coursing through her veins. In that moment, she realized they needed each other. The shadows were relentless, but she had to fight. She pushed forward, clawing through the darkness, her heart aching with every step. "I won't let you take him. I won't be consumed. We are stronger than your curse." With a fierce roar, she summoned every ounce of love, every spark of hope within her, willing it to ignite. Light surged forward, cutting through the oppressive veil. The whispers fell silent, shocked by her defiance. Jess felt a rush of warmth, a flicker of familiar energy surrounding her Luke. They were connected in that moment, hearts beating in unison, the bond of a mother and son. "We can break this!" she cried, feeling the darkness tremble around them. "Mom! I'm trying!" Luke's voice was strong despite the strain. She could see him now, emerging through the shadows, his form illuminated by the light they created together. He was fighting, clawing his way back to her, refusing to let the darkness have him. As they reached out, fingers stretching toward each other, the world around them began to fracture. Light poured into the cracks, forcing shadows to retreat. "Yes. That's it," Jess encouraged. "We can do it." The darkness writhed and shrieked, but Jess pressed on. "Hold on, baby. Just a little further." In that moment, a blinding light erupted, and an overwhelming force yanked them into its embrace, ripping them away from the clutches of despair. Jess felt a surge: joy, warmth, love. Time itself seemed to shatter, and as the shadows screamed in fury, the blinding light enveloped them entirely. Then silence. When Jess opened her eyes, she was lying in the grass, dawn breaking on the horizon. Sunlight spilled over the horizon like honey, warming her skin. She blinked, confusion flooding her senses. Had it all been a dream? But then she heard a voice, soft and trembling. "Mom?" Jess leaped up, heart racing. It was Luke. He sat up beside her, eyes wide with relief and fear, but he was himself, real and whole. She rushed to him, enveloping him in a tight embrace, tears streaming down her face. "You're okay. You're back." They held each other as the warmth of the morning sun chased away the ghosts of night, filling their hearts with hope. In the distance, they saw the familiar outline of their suburb, peaceful and bathed in sunlight. The terror they'd faced felt like a fevered nightmare, yet its remnants lingered in the air, a battle that had changed them forever. Jess pulled back, looking into her son's eyes. "I thought I lost you, Luke. I thought I lost you too, Mom," he whispered, a shiver passing through him. But they had fought the darkness together, faced the fears that had haunted their neighborhood, and now they were free together. As they walked home hand in hand, the shadows from that night retreated into the corners of their minds. Rumors would swirl, names would rise and fall, but Jess and Luke bore the truth woven into the very fabric of their bond. Love triumphed over fear. They could not let the darkness define them. "It's not over yet," Jess said quietly, determination sparking anew. "But we can face whatever comes next. Together." With the sun rising behind them, Illuminating the path ahead, they stepped forward. Not into oblivion, but into life. A new beginning beckoning on the horizon. Their hearts were tethered, unbreakable, woven into a story far richer than shadows could ever tell. Friend, this is the moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that bring you heart-stopping thrills. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let your voice be heard. Flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about this unbelievable conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of hope and love in overcoming darkness. Join our community and show your support for what is to come. Every action counts, be a part of it.